CNN continues denying the possibility of voting fraud in the 2020 election. However, footage from their own reporting reveals they previously considered voting fraud a national security issue. Here's One America's Pearson Sharp.
The 2020 election is yet to be decided, and the biggest problem hinges over voting fraud. Does it exist or doesn't it? Well, if you listen to the mainstream media today, you'd swear voting fraud is nothing more than a right-wing conspiracy theory. No credible journalist would ever be caught suggesting it could possibly happen. Or would they? Well, this is CNN we're talking about, so obviously there's no credibility to start. But let's ignore that for a moment and let CNN demonstrate for themselves exactly what hypocrisy in the media looks like. Take a look at these clips, some from today after the 2020 election and others from back in 2006 when Democrats and the left-wing media actually claimed that voting fraud was a national security issue. See for yourselves.
You couldn't possibly believe that the company counting our vote, with control over our vote, is owned by two Venezuelans who were allies of Chavez, are present allies of Maduro, with a company whose chairman is a close associate and business partner of George Soros, the biggest donor to the Democrat Party, the biggest donor to Antifa, and the biggest donor to Black Lives Matter.
Well, let me tell you something. None of that is true. It's the QAnon conspiracy edition of Choose Your Own Adventure. Dominion has absolutely no corporate ties with George Soros or Venezuela. But that's not stopping Trump campaign attorney Sidney Powell from making the wild and totally unfounded claim that Dominion is somehow tied to Hugo Chavez.
The Dominion voting systems, the Smartmatic technology software, and the software that goes in other computerized voting systems here as well, not just Dominion, were created in Venezuela at the direction of Hugo Chavez to make sure he never lost an election.
They let Sidney Powell, the woman who was working with Rudy Giuliani, you saw at the press conference, she says the most obnoxious, baseless things. They then say, well, she's not part of the team. She's freelancing. They never say that what she was saying was baseless or obnoxious. It's an obvious play from, dirty politics 101.
I mean, Hugo Chavez, really? That's what we're going to talk about?
That's right.
That was the most ridiculous thing. That we were in the realm of ridiculousness there.
The U.S. company that makes the machines, Sequoia, was bought in 2005 by Smartmatic, a private company primarily owned by Venezuelan businessmen. When Chicago had problems with the machines, a dozen Venezuelan employees were there to help with the election. Chicago officials are outraged.
I think that American elections ought to be run by American companies and ought to be run by American citizens, not Venezuelan nationals.
It's frankly just crazy stuff, tinfoil hat stuff. But the idea is that because of this software, somebody is able to go in and change the results. If somebody even wanted to do that, could they do that? I mean, isn't there just a huge paper trail and dozens, if not hundreds and thousands of hundreds or thousands of people watching?
You really can't miss it. The yellow button at the back of the Sequoia voting machine. Tens of thousands of machines used in 16 states and Washington, D.C. That button puts the machine in manual mode, so anyone can vote and repeatedly cast as many votes as they want.
Rudy Giuliani on Fox Sunday spinning his latest false conspiracy theory about an American voting machine company, a bizarre take involving George Soros, votes being counted in Spain, and dead strongman Hugo Chavez.
A company that has close ties with Venezuela and therefore China.
False. Truth, facts, they don't seem to matter to Giuliani.
Fewer than a dozen Smartmatic employees work in Florida. The majority of the workers are based in Venezuela. Watchdog groups question why U.S. voting machines would be under the control of citizens of another country, especially a country whose own election process is highly suspect.
We believe this is a national security issue. There is no way that companies belonging to non-U.S. corporations should have access to our elections.
This is why the mainstream media can't be trusted, and why, if you're listening to them, you're intentionally being misled. In 2005, Smartmatic purchased Sequoia Voting Systems, a company that manufactured voting machines and also had deep ties to the Venezuelan government. Back then, the media and even Democrats were outraged over the connection between America's democracy and election integrity and the corrupt communism of Venezuela's de facto dictatorship. Today, though, as you've seen, the left-wing media has no problem painting all these concerns as nothing more than Republican tinfoil hat theories. However, One America News believes the American people have a right to know what's actually happening because the fate of an election and an entire country hangs in the balance. For One America News, I'm Pearson Sharp.
Want to see more videos like this? Visit OANN.com.